Braveheart Workshops, inspiring connection. Restore, renew, and reconnect in community. Live well, laugh often, love much. Join our online connection circles. Be empowered in our virtual live events. Be a guest on our podcast shows. Hire us or be hired for speaking engagements. Enhance hope, health, and healing in your lives. Creating global connections. The Connection Show, sponsored by Braveheart Workshops, live with Jill Reynolds. The Connection Show, inspiring hope, health, and healing in 2021. Sponsored by Braveheart Workshops and live with Jill Reynolds. Joining me today from Nashville, Tennessee is Dorris Walker-Taylor. Welcome to the show, Dorris.
Thank you so much. I am so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, we are so honored you took time from your busy day, Dorris, and I'd love the audience to know just a little bit about you. So, Dorris Walker-Taylor is to fall in love with. She's just the type of person to fall in love with her kind spirit, optimistic outlook, her contagious smile, and her beautiful voice. Dorris Walker-Taylor, a 2012 graduate of the Thistle Farms Magdalene residential program, has overcome 26 years of addiction, trauma, and prostitution. Today, Dorris is a survivor. She was given the chance to heal and has managed to put her life back together again with blessings of the Lord and the dedicated love of the Thistle Farms residential and justice enterprise. Dorris is committing to paving the way forward and speaking out for women around the world who have yet to find their way home. Dorris is an accomplished speaker and an advocate, having been interviewed multiple times, including with Reverend Becca Stevens for the 2017 CNN Hero Awards. Dorris has been featured on the Today Show, the 700 Club, and the radio show Step Into the Light, as well as Truckers Against Trafficking. Dorris currently serves as a Senior Ambassador of Community Relations and manages Thistle Farms events and their travel team. She brings a message of love heals on the road and a profound impact for the women sharing their stories and for both men and women as they witness the power of love. Well, what an amazing story that is.
Thank you. You know, it sounds good now, but I had a long, miserable journey. But I am so grateful for my life now. When I look back over my life and I think about how far God has brought me, because I was in my addiction for 26 long, miserable years. And, you know, I come to find out that my story is no different, any better or any worse than anyone else's story, because we all have stories. Be it good or bad, everybody on this earth has a story. But I have found that I have been able to take my story and find healing in it. I have been able to take my story, the bad, the ugly, and I've been able to give praise to God because he brought me out. So on Monday, November the 9th, 2009, I got my life back. All of my trauma began at the age of 12. I can remember being in my addiction at the age of 13, and that addiction quickly progressed. And by the time I was an adult, I had a full-blown addiction. You see, my life started off because I was a witness to my father's murder. And, you know, there are a lot of details in that I'm happy to share with you all. So please come and let me tell my entire story step by step, because I want you all to feel and I want you all to hear all the devastating things that happened to me in my life. But by the grace of God, he carried me and he watched over me, even when I was living outside of his will. I got my life back, and I am so grateful to have the opportunity to speak because for a long time, I didn't have a voice. For a
Mm.
long time, nobody would listen to me. But God has gave me just a little bit of a platform to be able to say that God is absolutely amazing in my life. I have an amazing story full of trauma, full of addiction, full of rapes, full of being abused, being left in the street for dead. But God gets the glory because He brought me out of all of that. So
Mhm.
I can't wait to be able to go to Branson, Missouri and stand on that stage and look you all in the face and tell my story. Looking
Mm.
forward to it. Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. Amen, sister. I am just, and I just, I'm so grateful that you shared even that tidbit because one thing that the Lord gave to me one day, Doris, is I too have had a crazy, crazy life, and when we get off the tape, we'll share more. But one of the things that I ended up acting out upon because as a result of some of my abuses was for a couple of years in San Diego, I was a naked dancer. And years later, I got to talking to people who at times would judge, like the judgment would be cast upon and say, oh gosh, those women that or men out there who are naked dancers or prostitutes, they're like the scum of the earth.
Yeah.
And 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 the Lord shared with me when I did a lot of my own deep personal work. I said, Father God, help me to understand what led me to dancing naked. And he said, Jill, with all the people who abused you all your life and how your life felt so out of control and you felt so no power, you didn't have
Hmm.
power. When
Hmm.
you got to dance, it was the first time in your life because the bouncers, Doris, wouldn't let anybody in the place touch us. And so we could entice the people, but they weren't allowed to touch us. And so I came to recognize, I really believe that dancing and prostitution is a form of us that have been abused to feel empowered for the first time. It's power
Yes. Yes.
empowerment. It's not the
Yes.
right empowerment, but it's empowerment. And I
It is.
think that that's like it was a real healing thing for me because again, I lived in that shame of, oh, was I a horrible person? I took off my clothes for a living. But then when I came to the realization of the reason why, there was freedom in that and healing for me to recognize why I was acting out in the way that I did.
That's right. That's right. Because there is no little girl that sits and says, "When I grow up, I think I want to be a prostitute." That doesn't happen.
No.
It's the fact that different things in our lives that happen. Because what were we going through if we thought one of the possibilities, one of the choices would have been to sell myself as though I was some type of commodity? So
Hmm.
I had to realize that it was my process and it was my things that happened. And it was because I didn't know how to ask for help. And like it takes a community of people to raise a child, it takes a village.
Hmm.
But I fell through the cracks. Nobody came to me after I was a little bitty girl and stand there and seeing all that happened to me on that day that my dad died. Nobody came to my rescue and said, let me bring you into therapy. So I realized that when I got to where I finally found peace, when I was accepted into the 2-year program at Thistle Farms, I expected to be judged. I expected them to say, okay, Doris, what have you been doing? But they didn't. They asked a very profound question. What happened to you? So
Yeah.
I realized from the very beginning, if something devastating happens to us in our lives and we don't turn it over to God or we don't get treatment for it, it'll manifest itself into a whole lot of stuff. And that's what had happened to me because I now work with women who come in for all sorts of reasons in our community. There are some women who come in because they were sold into human trafficking at a very early age. There are other people who come into our community because they grew up in homes where addiction was prevalent and they thought that was an okay way of life. And then there are other people who come into our community because they were touched by a family member or a stranger, and that molestation started a cycle of abuse in their lives. So I have learned, listen to other people's story to realize that in the very end, you can get counted all joy because God has brought us out of it. So yeah, yeah,
And
it's
I'm so glad you said, like that no one came alongside of you to help you, that to get you help. And I just want to stop and pause on that comment for one moment, because especially now, more than ever in the world, now more than ever with the trauma that all of us has faced around the world with COVID and the isolation and things that have happened with children not going to school and things of that. Right now, I think this is the most important time in the life of parents and community and friends and family,
mhm.
when you see or hear anything coming out of your child's mouth that indicates something of distress or
Yes,
something that wasn't present before. To, if you can, I mean, everyone can financially can't get help, but if you can get at what I would call a 1 or 2 or 3 visit assessment with a professional. And I say that because I know of, this has happened in my realm, of where I've seen children, one child, I'll just say, who started licking their lips like this all day long. Never did that before. And when I asked, why are you doing that? The response is, because I got to get all the germs off my face so I won't get sick. Well, that's a profound statement from a child that has such a fear that if anything got around the face, it would get sick. And there's a huge rash now, and they can't break the habit. That's an indication. Call a professional therapist who maybe specializes in OCD behaviors, and start doing some like not experiential, but start doing some therapy around how to break that, because something's going on in that child's mind of fear that they're going to get sick. Another thing that I picked up was where they said, they made comments of, like if you're sitting with them and you might say, "Oh, here, try this," and you pick it up. Their response was, "Oh, I can't eat that now because you touched my food and it's dirty." So again, those are patterns that a parent needs to listen to, because that is the beginning of eating disordered behaviors. And I've been recovered now from eating disorders, and it is one of the hardest things of all diseases to heal from. And if you can you can nip it in the butt really early, it won't lead to other manifestations later on. And so I know that there's therapists that work with OCD type of behaviors that use different modalities of helping that child break, or person break free from that. So again, what you said was so imperative, where when we don't pay attention to things that are different, that are happening within the children, then it progresses into more trauma and more trauma and more
yes,
trauma.
yes, absolutely. It does.
Yes, yes. Well, I am so grateful. So for the audience to know, I'm going to show right now Doris's bio and the website for Thistle Farms, where she can be located and reached out to.
Yes,
And Doris has agreed, and I'm so grateful, Doris. She's agreed to come to Branson, Missouri, the weekend of August 20th to the 22nd, to our upcoming Hope, Health, and Healing conference, where she's going to go deep into that story she started to talk about. And you'll be able to connect the dots in your own life of where some of her traumas led her down the path, and you'll be able to identify things in your own life for your own healing. I believe, Doris, in life, it's so important when we hear people share story to
yes.
listen to similarities of stories instead of differences.
Yes, yes, because we are all more alike than different. I
Hmm.
found that. And that was one thing that had started my healing process. That when I would hear the other women sit there and talk about what they had gone through, I'm like, oh, thought it was only me. I thought I was the worst. But I found out things happened. So we were able to bond in all of our misery. And then as we got our lives back, when I was able to go to another girl who had came through the program 2 years before me and say, well, how did you get away with it when every Friday night my whole body would feel antsy? Because that was one of the nights that I would be selling myself as though I was a commodity more than ever. And she would tell me, one might say, well, I just go in prayer. One might say, find a book to read. One might say, just hold on because a better day is coming. And that's what I did, because when I first walked into the program, one of the ladies told me, there are some days that are better than others. But if you can hold on and stick and stay, I promise you will get better. And that stick and stay bonded in my spirit, and I stuck with it. So now I have 11 years clean. I've got my life back, and I want to be able to tell my story to everyone who will listen. So please come to the conference. Come and listen to my story, because it starts bad, but I'm going to walk you through that thing, and I'm going to let you know about how amazing my life is now. Yes.
That's a beautiful story. So we definitely will be waiting to hear that story, and we can't wait to meet you in Branson, Missouri. So everyone, come and join us on August 20th to 22nd. And Dorris, thanks so much for taking time to visit with us today.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.
Have a blessed day, everyone.
Have a blessed day. Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on The Connection Show. Let's connect now. Let's restore, renew, and reconnect in community. Enhance connection in our online connection circles. A place to meet up, gather, and feel welcomed. To join us, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Click on the Books Podcast tab, and then the Connection Circles drop down. On the pop-up, join our Connection Circles Facebook group. Our circles meet from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Share story, topics, and laughter with men and women. To learn more about Connection Circles, go to braveheartworkshops.com. Thanks for joining us on The Connection Show, and have a great day.